Where the story begins, Arlene, please.
At school, I was told that every story must have a beginning, a middle, and an end. I paid special attention to that fact because, well, I wanted to be a storyteller, a writer. Yes, I figured I had at least one really good story in me. And when the time came, I wanted to be able to tell it right. So naturally, I waited for that bolt of lightning to strike. And when it didn't, I went searching for it. I travelled far and wide across some new and others less well-trodden paths. But the thing was, every path seemed to lead to another and then another. And so I discovered it was the same with people's stories. There really was no beginning, no middle, no end. And since every beginning is as good as any other, I'd like to start my story before the beginning, where two paths met. My parents met at the Ashling Ballroom in 1968. I don't know what the kids were wearing or what music was playing, as well, I wasn't there, and it's not really just my story. I could tell you what my mother was wearing, or at least exactly how my father described it to me once. I first started thinking about my parents as a story when I came across my mother's high school yearbook. There was a sketch entitled Vera and Jerry, a groovy pair. My mom in a fur collar coat, my dad with long scraggly hair. I wondered if the artist in question ever could have imagined that decades later her kids would find this sketch so amusing. My childhood was much freer and perhaps a bit more unruly than most. Every evening we would disappear outside into a world of treasure hunts, climbing trees, and well, the kind of games you invent when space and imagination are your greatest resource. My dad worked day and night on our mushroom farm. To me as a child, he appeared to be a kind of quiet, peaceful man, always pottering away in dark shadows, a bit jackish, soil and grit beneath his fingernails. Sometimes I ran to the darkness of the mushroom sheds to be with him. He didn't say much, but I would trot after him, picking up these temperature sticks, enjoying the warmth of the shed and the tranquility of his company. If my father could be found in the shadows, my mother always in the light, for she was the sun that we made an axis around. And like any celestial body, she was in perpetual motion. By the time I was 12, my mother had had a play school, a donut factory, 2 pubs, 2 B&Bs, a shop, 8 children, foster kids. If I were to describe my mum, I would describe her as a creative pragmatist. Typical mom story. She returns home with 2 bags of freshly chopped vegetables that she got for free because she befriended that guy in the market giving demonstrations of the V-slicer. You know those ones with 36 different slicing attachments? She told him it was for her chickens, but you know, we ate vegetable stir-fry for 3 weeks solid. One of the most shocking moments of my childhood was age 12, seeing my mother cry. It shouldn't have been so shocking since, well, my mother's mother had just died, but my mother was not given to emotional displays ever. What I didn't know at that point is something that I never would have believed, that my mother was dying, that she was not as indestructible as the sun. In her last days, she tidied up her affairs with impressive practicality. She bought a suit for my brother for her funeral, put it in his closet, put a note in the pocket. At first, after she died, I thought she never said goodbye to us. But then I remembered these conversations she'd had with her girls. She said things like, I want you to have nice things. Education is important. When I was your age, life with my dad as my primary carer after that was very different. We had a very set routine. Same 12 p.m. Sunday mass, same groceries every week, same TV shows. Typical dad story. One Christmas, he got a pack of 100 socks, all exactly the same. He said it was the best Christmas present he ever got. But perhaps my favourite memory of my father is one day I was sitting there playing with this wind-up car. I was actually about 17 at the time, but I was trying to distract myself from my studies. He said, I can make that go faster than you. Game on. By the time we'd finished, we had set up these ramps and tunnels made out of spoons and coasters. A short time before my dad died, we were on holidays having one of the few beers we ever got to have together, and I asked him, would he have liked to have a big company like our rich neighbours? I guess I figured he must be a little bit more like my mother than I thought. His very definite answer was no. My children are what I have done with my life, the best thing. The way he said it, it was more honest than sentimental. A few years later, in my early 20s, I attended a neighbour's party, when suddenly a family friend interrupted me and said, you know, this song, this is your parents' song. I didn't know, but I listened to the lyrics, and it kind of answered the question I had always had at the back of my mind. You're everything I wish I could be. I can fly higher than an eagle, 'cause you are the wind beneath my wings. You are the wind beneath my wings. They were not incompatible polar opposites as I first imagined, but instead supporting characters in each other's stories. Now, if you ever sit down to write the story of your life, you inevitably have to travel back to meet yourself. You'll ask, who is this character? Me. Me. Well, I have my mother's need to stand in the light without her pragmatism. I don't think anybody has her strength, but I'd like to think I've inherited just a little bit. I have my father's ability to have fun and be in the present moment. All on my own, I'm a little bit of a dreamer, a traveller. Maybe one day I can say a writer. A writer who figured out that the best place to start any story is anywhere, anytime. And that in any case, your story is never really your story. It's the story of your parents and your parents' story, their parents. But wherever my story takes me, I'd like to think that they are the winds beneath my wings.